Started great. Thank you so much. So colleagues, let's start with our session 3. For today, we are going to start appreciating a little bit more of the step-by-step guidance we've developed. Because as we discussed in the previous session, although we may have government or OCHA-led overarching ERP or contingency plans, even though we have this comprehensive guidance from the YASC on how to do ERP, often we've realized that for nutrition contingency plans, they remain a little bit vague, not actionable. And also we realize that in countries, preparedness is done a bit ad hoc. So the GNC, as Stefano said this morning, has put a higher priority for preparedness and will support preparedness and response. And so because we've realized that there was room to improve how we do preparedness collectively, this is why we came up with this step-by-step approach, unpacking a little bit better what needs to happen to have a good level of emergency preparedness. Okay, so here, and hopefully we will help. This will help standardizing, harmonizing, strengthening how we go about emergency response preparedness. So here we are now going to, with this session, appreciate the different steps of ERP planning and also better understand what are the expected outputs, the expected results of an ERP planning exercise, and learn about the tools we have to support each step of the planning process. So we're going to start with our first group work of the workshop. So you'll be split into different groups. And as a group, you're going to have to look at these different boxes. Each box can represent a step. And you need to assign a number to each text box to give some kind of a chronological order to it, if possible. Okay, so you'll see we'll be breaking into different rooms. You will have a co-facilitator helping you and going into this ERP folder on the Google Drive in half day 1, where we have all the presentations. You have these slides for session 3. So the co-facilitator will display on his or her screen. And as a group, you try to assign a number to each text box. Okay? So colleagues, I'm gonna split you into rooms. I need to take care of the settings. We're gonna put a time limit. We're gonna give like maybe 10 minutes for this, okay? And I'll be coming in each of the room to visit and check on how you're progressing with this exercise. Okay, see you in a bit, colleagues. We can take a few minutes to hear from one of the groups how the exercise went. Is there a volunteer, a group who would like to share how they went about this exercise and what chronological order they gave to the steps? Is there any group who wants to volunteer?
Sorry, Cecile, we didn't say who was going to be the spokesperson, but yeah, ours was very fast and not much discussion in terms of the order. So you can see there for group one.
Yeah.
So first we did the risk analysis and monitoring, then the mapping existing response and operational capacities. Third,
Okay.
the building the scenario building. Afterwards, we discussed a little bit which one should be first, this building, scenario building or mapping existing, but because it is almost like very simultaneously happening on the field, we said like, oh, maybe it's just a little of a detail, but ideologically, maybe that's the right order as we put, unless, someone has a different opinion. Then fourth, response analysis and design. Fifth, the work plan, which is the ones that you have done the analysis and the big scenario after the analysis, then is the plan. And then with the plan done, the consolidating the preparedness plans, then we can look at planning the operational arrangements, number 6, and consolidating the ERP plan document. And finally, obviously, the dissemination. I think that between the risk analysis and the plan dissemination, those 2 points were clear.
Okay.
And then we have a little discussion on early childhood development in emergencies.
Okay. You're hijacking my ERP
workshop.
No,
Because it was an interesting discussion on how the different countries are at different levels and how they work on the emergency response, which was very interesting.
Okay, good. I'm glad you managed.
No hijacking, seriously. No.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Eduardo and Group 1. So going back to our presentation, yes, so basically in the ERP toolkit we just developed, it's based on the YASC guidance, but we are proposing to really unpack everything with those 8 steps. The first 3 steps are, again, like the YASC advises, to first understand your hazards and do your risk analysis and monitoring. And then again, for hazards that have a medium to high gravity, very likely will happen and have a significant impact, then you enter into a more advanced level of preparedness. So you need to design and predict your crisis scenario for that given hazard and risk. And then the third step is really about mapping existing response capacities. The fourth step is about doing response analysis and response design for really the immediate response during the first weeks of crisis onset. The fifth step is about planning all the operational arrangements that you need to have in place to be able to respond during this initial phase and start anticipating all the possible bottlenecks, the constraints you may face, so that we mitigate them in advance. And then, as I said earlier, we have, for each of those steps, we are going to identify key preparedness actions. So in step 6, we will consolidate all those preparedness actions into a work plan. It's a key output of our planning process, because this preparedness action work plan, this is how we are actually tangibly building our higher level of emergency preparedness. And then step 7 is about putting all the planning information into a planning document or a dashboard. We'll see that later. And then the final step is about what are we going to do with that plan now? How are we disseminating it? How are we using it? How are we, how useful is it for the decision making? Okay. So we are proposing you those 8 steps in that order. But you'll see that there are some steps that somehow you're already working on during your day-to-day. You'll see that some are very much linked one to another. And yeah, we'll go through each and every one step of this planning together this week. Okay. So I have, again, a few key messages to bring back here at this stage. Remember, ERP is a continuous process. It's really critical we integrate minimum preparedness activities in the regular work of the nutrition sector cluster. And in many activities, you're already working on some of them. For instance, step 3, when we talk about mapping our existing capacities, for instance, it's about mapping our partners. This matrix called 4W, who is doing what, where, when. This is something you need to have, you have already, and you update them on a regular basis. This is part of step 3. This is something you need to do no matter what on a regular basis. Or having supplies, a list of key nutrition supplies for which you know what you have in the pipeline, what is being stored in a warehouse at national level, what supplies and how much are dispatched, when and where, those kind of things. This is something you have already. It's part of step 3. So we will actually not go through much of it this week, because step 3 is very much specific to your own country context. And again, it's most of the time something that is already ongoing. And it's only for medium to high risk that we embark into a more specific planning process, where we will have to go through all those steps, and where we define an ERP plan or a contingency plan collectively with all partners. And maybe we do it by also organizing a workshop to go through all this together as a cluster. Okay, so the tools we have developed recently are the step-by-step guide. So I've shared it in the past few weeks prior to the workshop. You have it in the shared folder on the Google Drive. There is a workshop package that was developed for you to be able to conduct an ERP event like we do this week, but with your partners in country over the course of 3 full days. Okay, so I've packaged this workshop package in 3 half days. That's why we have a limited amount of time for each exercises and each step. You have also a bunch of tools to support each step of the planning process. So let me show some of those tools, sorry. Again, in the ERP folder here, you see a bunch of materials, and you have, for instance, links to the online forms. So the online forms have been developed together with our IM specialist, Magnat and Shabib, and mirrors exactly the step-by-step guide. So for each of the step, when in country, you're gonna start documenting your planning information, you can put some highlights in there. For instance, on how you're gonna organize your ERP approach, who is gonna be responsible for what. You can type a few sentences, will do here. Or if you brainstorm on some lessons learned from previous emergencies that can inform your ERP plan, just add a few bullet points here. And you'll see that you have a very comprehensive form for every single step. And once so you can work on this, you can save it as a draft. And once you're done, you click submit and ta-da, you have an ERP dashboard. This is the ERP dashboard we've developed for our imaginary country that we'll be working on this week. It's coming, sorry. So it's basically all the information you've put in the online form that are now moved into a more visual tool. Okay, and it has a tab for each and every step. Okay, but you may want to also work on a Word document, because in your country you may have government colleagues or OCHA colleagues asking for a Word document. So you can have also this template that is derived from the YASC and the OCHA template for contingency plan. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We just tweak it so that it again mirrors all the steps we've unpacked. And each time you do collectively some planning with your partners, capture highlights your planning information in those various documents. This will help you at the end of a workshop or at some stage, if you do it through your regular cluster work, you will end up with your main two outputs, an ERP plan, either a Word document or a dashboard, and then the preparedness work plan that is here. It's very important. This is the second output you want to have. This is consolidating your prioritized preparedness actions you do prior a crisis hit to help you build this higher level of emergency. And you can have preparedness actions for each and every single step of the process. Okay? Okay. What's the time here? We're good. We're on time. So you have all those links and all those tools in the Google Drive. You also have the self-evaluation tool we played with earlier today. And we are organizing, the GNC is organizing those global ERP events. And we will soon add more e-learning modules on our GNC Learn platform. Okay? That's the end of the session 3. So we have maybe 1 or 2 minutes for questions if there are any at this stage. Okay, I see a comment from Ben in the chat about the dashboard can be useful, but often difficult to develop. So basically, we have, I mean, true. It's true. It will require some efforts to prioritize more time to do ERP, to mainstream ERP in the work we do, and to capture preparedness actions in a work plan and preparedness planning information in a Word document. But we have to develop an ERP plan. So you can do it in the form of a Word document, but we really recommend to have highlights moved into the Kobo form online that are built for you. They are already made. You can just type information, and then the dashboard is generated automatically once you submit your ERP form online. Okay? So currently we have only one country, except Zwantipolis, that is the imaginary country we're playing with. It's Myanmar. is the only country so far who was a country with which we piloted a bit of ERP last year. But the GNC has in its strategy an indicator that is aiming at having at least 75% of priority country having an ERP dashboard online. This is to also demonstrate the commitment we all have to have more systematically and standardized ERP plans being developed. So if you just want to insert a link to an ERP plan that is still in the form of a document, you can do so. But we will need to start seeing more countries sharing more their ERP plans. And the dashboard is useful because it's very visual. Okay, I'm going to stop now for this session. Where were we? Here. We can stop the recording as we move to session 4.